Welcome to Living the Smarter Science of Slim, where we provide a scientifically proven lifestyle for long-term health and fat loss by eating more and exercising less, but smarter.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor back with another bonus Smarter Science of Slim podcast. And as you know, we're about eating smarter and exercising smarter and living better. And that living better is really going to be the focus of today's show, because we have a very wonderful guest with us, someone who has been enabling people to live better through unlocking their creativity most effectively for more than 3 decades. She is the author of 37 books, including a book called The Artist Way, which has sold more than 2 million copies. Her work has been translated into more than 35 languages and has totaled more than 4 million sales worldwide. So she has been helping folks to be as creative as they can, unlocking their creativity and therefore living better for just a really long time. Julia Cameron, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be here, Jonathan.
Well, Julia, just to get started, how can we let's take a step back, and you have a wonderful quote, which I had written down here, which is, most of us have no idea of our real creative height. We are much more gifted than we know. My tools help to nurture those gifts. What do you mean by that? And can you elucidate on what you mean by assisting those to unlock their creativity?
Well, I believe that all of us are innately creative, and that some of us have an easier time accessing our creativity than others. And I wrote The Artist's Way in order to help the people who were stymied to move forward. And I have 3 basic tools that if people use them, they will unblock their creativity and move into a fuller life.
Well, as I would love if you to share at least some of those with us.
Okay. The first tool, and this is the one that I'm sort of known for, is a tool called Morning Pages. And it's 3 pages of longhand morning writing about absolutely anything that crosses your mind. It's a little bit like having ADD, because you might write down, I didn't like what Jim said to me at the office yesterday. I forgot to buy kitty litter. So it looks like it has nothing to do with creativity, but in fact, it clears the path for creativity, because what we're writing down on the page are the things that usually sort of float through our day and inhibit us. So that's Morning Pages. It's like building a spiritual radio kit, and it's like when you do your pages, you're sort of you're telling the universe or the higher power or God, whatever you care to call it, you're telling it, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what I want more of, this is what I want less of. And when you are specific with your morning pages, the universe is able to respond to you in a very specific way.
So, Julia, if I understand correctly, is it so we're not censoring ourselves? We're almost just meditating on the page with the written word. We're focusing our thoughts and just doing that via writing to clear out our mind and to focus our mind. Is that my understanding correctly?
You're understanding perfectly.
Wonderful. Well, and I love what you said about it allows us to get out of our heads some of the things that would otherwise block us from having maybe nobler or more productive or more useful or creative thoughts throughout the day.
Yes, it's a very useful form of meditation for Westerners. Sometimes Westerners have a hard time sitting for 20 minutes doing nothing, and so I say sit for 20 minutes and do something.
Keep it simple. I love that, Julia. That reminds me of one of the exercises. I have a new book coming out called The Calorie Myth, and one of the exercises we do is very similar to this, and it's sentence completion. So it's another form of, when I do X, I'm excited because I will feel Y. And just really getting those words out and putting them on paper, it seems like you've seen bear fruit for many decades now.
Yes, and what happens when you write morning pages is that your censor, the inner negative voice, will start to say things like, "You're so petty. You're so negative," and you'll hear that censor's voice. But there's no wrong way to do morning pages, so you'll say to the censor, "Thank you for sharing." And you'll keep right on going. And this is a portable skill. You learn to hear your sensor's voice as sort of a cartoon character who is always negative, a little bit like Pigpen with all the negative flies buzzing.
I love it.
And that's what your sensor's like. And so I have a second tool, which is once a week, take yourself out and do something festive by yourself. It's a play date, if you will. And many times people report that when they are doing these play dates, which are called artist dates, that they feel a sense of connection to a benevolent something. So it's as though you're building a radio kit, you've done the sending with the morning pages, and then you flick it over to receive for the artist date, and you start to get what I would call a conscious contact with the benevolent something, and you begin to feel optimism.
And what types of activities do you often see people engaging in during this time?
Well, one of the things we have here in Santa Fe is a place called 10,000 Waves, which is a spa. And a lot of times people will go up and get a massage, or they'll go sit in a hot tub. But it can be anything. A lot of times I tell people to go to a children's bookstore. And I imagine there's a good children's bookstore in Seattle.
Certainly.
Or I'll say, go to a flower shop, and they'll go to a plant store. And I tell them, now try to spend an hour. We want to say, I walked in the flower store, I saw an African violet, that was that. And instead I'm saying, stay and soak in the atmosphere. Really observe.
And again, this seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but for example, watching a very violent movie or playing a very violent video game is not the type of activity we'd want to be doing here. It's something that's a little bit more centering, or?
Yes, I don't think you want to go watch people being blown to bits.
So it sounds like it's a little bit more nature-oriented, relaxation-oriented. Don't think of it necessarily as going to do something spiritual, but it seems hard to walk through a beautiful landscape and not feel some level of spiritual serenity.
Yes, I think that's true. It's expanding our awareness. What happens is many of us have lives where we do the same things all the time. And we get into a rut and then we furnish it. And the artist date is a way to get yourself out of the rut of daily living into an adventure.
So it's almost by changing your physical environment, by changing your external environment, that may help you change your internal environment.
It definitely does help you change your internal environment.
I think that's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful tool. I like that. Well, what is so we've got the morning pages, we've got the play date. What's the third tool?
The third tool is very simple. It's walking.
Mm.
And one of the things that I find is that when people walk, they integrate the insights that came to them from the other two tools.
Mm.
So I think it's probably sometimes the rain in Seattle is a light mist. And maybe people can go for a lightly misted walk.
Absolutely. Or a mystical walk, maybe.
Yes, that's a good way to put it too.
Oh, I love that. And it reminds me, Julia, of, I think it was Blaise Pascal, who I'm going to paraphrase here, but I believe he said something like, all of humanity's problems come from our inability to sit in a room alone quietly. And I feel like this has to do with what we're talking about here, in the sense that while traditional forms of meditation and quiet alone time are very difficult in modern Western society, you've given us some tools here that may enable us to unlock some of the benefits of more traditional meditative practices, which have been used with high efficacy for literally thousands of years in the modern culture. Is that fair?
Yes, it's fair. And I think it's an interesting thing. When I wrote The Artist's Way, which was back in 1992, I put the first two tools at the front of the book. So at the beginning of the book, you read about morning pages and how to do them, and artist dates and how to take them. And then you go through 12 weeks of the course, and it's only in week 12 where I say, oh my God, you need to walk.
Mm.
And so in the years that I've been teaching since, I have found walking to be a much more potent tool than I had initially realized.
And walking, just to bring this back to something I know our listeners are fans of, is it does seem like walking is just on so many levels. We're talking about the spiritual benefits of walking, but I mean, you're getting spiritual benefits, you're getting physical benefits. It's something that you can do for your whole life. I mean, literally, folks, I would put walking right up there with reading, where it seems just like the more you walk and the more good stuff you read, that's like just goodness for your body and your spirit altogether, it sounds like.
Yes, I think so.
Well, Julia, one thing I wanted to dig into with you is, some people may, look you up online, which is juliacameronlive.com. Lots of great resources there. Again, that's juliacameronlive.com. May see that, you're more than 2 million copies sold book, The Artist's Way, and think to themselves, I'm not an artist. This doesn't apply to me. But it actually seems like we all are artists on some level. I mean, you look at just even navigating through the modern world and not going crazy. Seems like you almost need to be artful in your everyday living to accomplish that. What do you think?
Well, I think that we have many choice points during the day where we can decide I'm going to do X or I'm going to do Y. And these choice points are the things that become more vivid as you work with morning pages. You start to see. I have 15 minutes at lunch. I can either sit at my desk or I can quickly go outside for a minute or two. And as you work with morning pages, you begin to make more and more positive choices at the choice points. You don't overturn your whole life, but you overturn a small part of it each day.
So I'm sorry, I'm frantically writing notes down because you hit on 3 things there that really, really resonated with me, Julia. So just really quickly to run through them, some of the things you mentioned there reminded me of something that is foundational in the most influential teacher in my life who was Dr. Stephen Covey, and he talks about the gap between stimulus and response. And I hear you as calling that choice points, where you mentioned almost taking a step back and deciding before you're in the moment of choice what you're going to do with that time at lunch. But I can also imagine that these morning pages and this more artistic, conscious form of living enables us in the moment. Like, let's say someone cuts us off in traffic. Like, that just happened. That stimulus just happened. But there's a gap in between that stimulus and your response. And I would imagine that that gap starts to grow the more we engage in these exercises.
I'm not certain that the gap grows. I think that our spontaneity grows, and maybe we're saying the same thing.
Yeah, I meant when I say gap grows, I mean more. We have more. We're in a better position to choose something productive after we face something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and the other thing, Julia, that really resonated with me was just the old quote of the unexamined life is not worth living. And it seems like if nothing else, this is an amazingly powerful way to help ourselves start living a more examined life.
Yes, but I want to put a cautionary note in here. I tell people to do 3 pages of longhand morning writing. That's one side, another side, and another side. And sometimes people say to me, well, can't I write 6 pages? And I say, no, you really don't want to, because what happens with 3 pages is that you have enough space to examine whatever you're going through, and another maybe, it takes about a page and a half to sort of clear the decks, and then the next page and a half is more difficult to get to, but has more pay dirt in it. But if you keep going at the end of 3 pages, you are in danger of narcissism. You become too involved in your own process, and you stop taking actions. And the Artist's Way Toolkit is all about taking actions. So I say 3 pages and then stop.
I love that. It's always this paradox where we get to, and this is what I enjoy about your work, Julia, that you make explicit that you don't want to do too much of this, because our whole goal here is to, in some ways, free ourselves. And if we overdo it, then we end up in this, like you said, this narcissistic world where our efforts to become more spiritually whole become counterproductive, because it's almost like we just spend all of our time finding things we want to improve and do better and no time actually doing them.
Exactly.
And I think we see the same thing, interestingly, Julia, we're talking more about the mental world here, but also in the physical world, where people who want to, for example, obviously exercising is good for you, but if you do too much exercise, it's bad for you. So it's the same thing here of staying focused on our goal, which is, let's call it, for the sake of our podcast here, mental and spiritual fitness is about, engaging in that intentional activity, but not too much of that activity.
Exactly.
And also the thing you mentioned about finding these little things daily. Again, that's, I think, such a powerful distinction, where it's the constant and never-ending gradual improvements versus thinking that I need to change everything tomorrow. How do we help to, because that's basically what our society tells us to do, right? Change everything tomorrow versus small incremental improvements. How can we help focus ourselves on those small incremental improvements?
Well, I think one way we do it is the morning pages. They will make a suggestion, and if you ignore it, a day later they may make the same suggestion. And they sort of tap you on the shoulder and say, you haven't gotten to this yet.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go for your walks, you begin to appreciate the environment that you're in.
I love it. Well, Julia, this is obviously, we've just scratched the surface. Your work has literally touched the lives of millions and millions of people. So thank you for all that you've done to help so many live so much better. And if folks like what they're hearing, which I certainly do, I know they can go check out juliacameronlive.com. And you have 30 plus books they can check out. Is there anything else they could check out to learn more about you and living a more artistic life?
Well, Julia Cameron Live has access to an online course, and I taught it in my living room in Santa Fe.
Mm.
So it's very intimate.
Mm.
And so if people want to do the artist's way, and they want a 12-week course, but they want some company, they can find it through Julia Cameron Live.
And I think you also have a online support group and other ways that people don't have to travel this road alone, correct?
That's exactly right.
Beautiful, Julia. Well, thank you so much for a lifetime of helping people to think smarter and to live better. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's show as much as I did. And I'm going to have to start my morning pages tomorrow, because I tell you, that does sound like, I can't imagine that not helping. So, Julia, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome, Jonathan.
And listeners, I hope you enjoyed today's show as much as I did. And remember, this week and every week after, eat smarter, exercise smarter, and heck, given today's podcast, think and write smarter and live better. Talk with you soon.
Wait, don't stop listening yet. If you like the podcast and if there's other ways we can help you, please join us in the Smarter Science of Slim support group, which is freely available at the Smarter Science of Slim website, smarterscienceofslim.com. There you'll find all kinds of free recipes and success stories and just all kinds of fun stuff, like how to help your kids go sane and just great community content.
And just one last thing before you go, if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and up onto Amazon.com and leaving us a review, and then going over to Facebook and liking us, we would hugely appreciate